Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Markley.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Alan Markley. I'm superintendent of the Raytown C2 School District, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the district and the Board of Education. We have one member present, Miss Amy Tittle, Vice President of the Board. Let me begin by letting the Board know that we are in a budget crisis, not only in the school district but in the state. We're facing, and you've probably seen in the paper or on television, a $700 million deficit in the state budget. Over 30% of our revenue comes from the state budget, so that certainly concerns us. Locally, in 2009, we realized over an $80 million loss in assessed value in our school district, and it also affected the city of Raytown because you fall within that. The local revenue for us is 54%. We derive 54% of our total revenues in our budget from local revenues. We are facing reassessment in 2011. We have noticed that the housing market and foreclosures have not decreased or perhaps increased during that time, so that is a fear for us. I've given you some handouts, and I apologize for not getting them to you prior. The first handout is a property tax abatement impact analysis. We ran our own analysis. You've seen assumptions. These are assumptions as well. They're there for your review. There's 5 different scenarios that we have come up with using the numbers given to us by the city and also by the developer. I will say the developer did meet, the representatives from the developer met with us last week to discuss the project. Handout number 2 is an interesting, colorful document, and I apologize also for the size of the numbers. They're difficult to see, and if you need something larger at some time, please let me know, and we'll make that made available to you. But that is our 10-year renovation plan. We had a facilities assessment done and I'm saying renovation only in the school district, no new buildings. And you can see that price tag over 10 years is $81 million. And that's just to maintain our facilities so we can house our programs and be effective for students. Handout number 3 is a further depiction of those numbers. And it looks like this. And again, they are small numbers, but we are taking the numbers given to us and also that are assumed by the assessor in Jackson County on the 2% growth in reassessment years. One number that you will find at the bottom of all those scenarios is a 5% discount rate, and you may wonder what that is. I can tell you if this abatement is granted, we will need revenues to complete the projects mentioned in the spreadsheet before. And that 5% comes from what we would have to pay to borrow money, either through bonds or lease purchases. So that's what the 5%, 5 to 5.5% depicts there. Now, we're not opposed to development. We want to see Raytown prosper, but we are against this abatement in its current form. Our job is to provide programs for students. This abatement, specifically in the first 10 years, will decrease our tax flow or our cash flow. When you combine that with state revenues lost and potential local revenues through reassessment loss, it becomes a problem for us. We would like to come to the table and discuss ways how we could be made whole. I know they mentioned tonight that we would be made whole over the 25-year period. The 25-year period, that's a grand idea, but we're in the here and now. We have mandates, we have guidelines set on us from the state and federal governments of programs we have to offer for students. That cash flow is important to offer those programs and stay in compliance, and that is truthfully the here and now. Now, we've heard a lot of assumptions tonight. Here's some facts, quick facts. The school district is the biggest investor in this project. Our cash flow will decrease, specifically in the first 10 years. Potentially additional revenues will require additional voter-approved taxes of commercial and residential patrons who do not have a 353 abatement. They would have to pay those extra taxes. There are over $19 million in tax-deferred assessed value in our school district, including in areas of Kansas City. That's $500,000 annually out of our budget from tax deferral. We know we will see reduced funding from the state. How much that's going to be, the General Assembly will decide that this spring. My final question would be, are we willing to gamble on these assumptions? And with that being said, I appreciate you having me here tonight and might answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of Dr. Markley at this time? Thanks, sir. Andy, it puts you back up again.
Good evening again. I think without looking at all the figures, it's a no-brainer that it's best to, in this plight, the tax revenue would definitely be increased rather than leaving it vacant. Dr. Markley does make good points, but I really question why doesn't the schools cut out unnecessary projects like athletics, school buses? I mean, this is all unnecessary. Focus on education. The 3 R's, that's all we need for the students. They don't need all this extra stuff. The school district could definitely cut back. And I think a grocery store, I know people have complained in the Raytown report that there are too many grocery stores in Raytown. But this is one that's close to downtown. It's one that's within walking distance. In fact, I knew 2 people who walked across the 63rd Street Bridge to get to the Thriftway. And it is necessary for the community to have something within walking distance. Very good selling point. I think this plan should proceed. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Would anyone else in the audience like to address the board at this time on this subject? Okay, we're gonna shut down public comments. Ms. Lynn, is there anything else from the staff side that you'd like to share with us at this time?
I don't think so. Obviously, I'm here to answer questions about either, obviously if you have specific application questions, they've got quite a team here. If you've got questions about the IRMRC program guidelines or about the 353 tax abatement, I'd be glad to answer those if you have them.
Okay, I want to remind the board that this is the first reading tonight, but it's also going to be important that because it's the first reading and the second reading, I hope the action will be taken to where we'll continue this to date certain of January 4th. It's going to be important that our voices be heard tonight so that the applicant can respond to those questions and comments. It would be wrong for us to withhold comments and then bring them back on the 4th and not give the applicant a chance, because we want to give this a fair debate here. But I also want to remind you that we've been at this for about an hour and 40 minutes, I think now too, and there will be another night yet to continue this discussion. So if you've already spoken, I mean, I'm not going to limit conversation certainly, but let's stay on track with this. So I'm going to go to board discussion, and Mr. Van Buskirk, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for graciously sharing your cough drops with me too. That's helped.
You're welcome.
I too have questions about the owners of the property. I wish they were here tonight so we could actually ask them some questions. That'd make us a lot easier. Do you think they'll be here?
They will.
The next hearing?
There's 2 owners. They're both be here on the board.
I guess my concern is that, is there a deterioration of the property? Is that just interior deterioration? Or, is there exterior deterioration? I noticed there is a little bit put in here for facade. I think it's $500. But I don't know what that's going to do exactly. But in the savalot projected cost. I guess my question, and you can't answer this since the owners are not here and you're just a management company that manages this for them, but why they let the interior of this building deteriorate to the point that you're saying it has. And apparently it sounds like they certainly have the resources available to them monetarily to keep it in good condition. So I have questions about that.
I can definitely answer that question.
you know, the basics are in retail real estate, the tenants are responsible for 100% of the interiors of their spaces. So when a landlord receives a vacancy back from the tenant, it comes in whatever condition that tenant gives it to them in. And one of the, you know, I wouldn't say unusual circumstances is that Cottington's was in there for many, many years. So there's a normal wear and tear provision in their lease that does not require them to return it in the same condition they received it, because they have the ability to subtract normal wear and tear. And after 30 or 40 years of having a grocery store there, normal wear and tear was, you know, kind of their plea for the condition that they provided the space in. So
the abatement's actually for savalot and not for the property owners? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is the tenant doesn't have any responsibility to give it back to the landlord in what we would call white box condition. There was no responsibility. And during the time for which they occupied the space, the landlord was not responsible for any of the interior improvements to that space. They were responsible to keep it in working condition and keep it open as a viable business, and that was it. So your question was, how come the landlord hasn't kept it up? The answer is they received it in the condition Cottington's gave it to them in, and have not made any improvements to the interior of that space until they could contemplate having a new tenant to take that space.
Now, you know, as far as the heating and air, did you state earlier that the rest of the tenants have their own heating and air that they put in their own heating and air
that it's
units?
Their responsibility to maintain the heating, just to maintain and replace them if they go out. The landlord's responsibility is to provide it to them in working condition upon receipt, okay. And it's their responsibility to maintain those throughout the terms of their lease. So again, there's an issue for us. If we had a system that functioned for the size and the specifications that Savalot has, if that was in there today, we could give it to them and say, hey guys, use this. Their response when we tried that to begin with was, are you kidding? This is on its last leg. It's not retrofitted for our space. It's to service a 32,000 foot space. And we don't want to have anything to do with taking care of that HVAC system. So
I have a question about the number of employees, and we're talking about 16. Now, it says permanent jobs. Now, permanent can imply permanent part-time. It can imply permanent full-time. Part of the conditions that have to be met is 15 full-time jobs. So these are full-time jobs, not permanent part-time jobs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I'm surprised at that.
Well, they do operate 7 days a week, and I believe they may be open 24 hours. So they definitely have extended hours, if not 24 hours. So they do have quite a bit of man-hours in that. I would like to see the addition of the grocery store to the center, certainly. I think it would be an enhancement to our community. It would be a benefit to us for it to be there, and it would help the other tenants in that center. I do have concerns about what we're going to be abating as far as improvements there, and as Mr. Ertz stated earlier, you know, when you're talking about cooling units and the coolers and those types of things, that really does concern me. I noticed that it stated that 59%, the Center 63 has suffered a 59% vacancy since Cottington's closed. That's in percentage of square feet, right? Right. Not in total number of tenants. How many tenants are there? Is the center capable of handling, and how many do you have there now? Could you back that slide up to the one that shows the site plan, and I can tell you. Actually, one of the ones that is not even on that site plan.
Yeah, it's on a wireless network.
It's
number 3
in your package. point. And actually, the tanning salon has also closed recently, in addition to what's shown in blue on page 3 of your package. But we've got,
It's been a long night for the slideshow also.
Probably closed because of the extra federal taxes that have been placed on it. But while you're looking for that, I noticed that it's stating that. Okay.
Okay, so right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces total if you count the driftway space as 2 separate units.
That are closed at this point. Okay, and how many are occupied there?
And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
We have 20 listed.
Oh, okay, 20. So the difference would be 12.
Okay, thank you.
I can read it here, you can't read it.
I noticed that it says it will take approximately 24 months to fill the balance of the anchor space. So you're assuming that it may take up to 2 years to fill the other portion of this?
Well, I think we were kind of the balance of the vacancy, including that anchor space. So, you know, our projection is that once savalot opens, that over the next 24 months, we will be able to have lease up to full occupancy.
Well, what says here that would take 36 months to do that, 24 months to fill the the white box area, and then 36 months approximately to fill. So a 3-year period to fill the rest of the.
The answer to that is on that assumption page, it's for retail sales tax producing capable.
Right.
So for them to be open and operating in the space would be 24 months for the remaining anchor vacancy and 36 months for full lease up of the other shops. That doesn't mean that we're going to wait until month 36 to fill those in.
Well,
but it would stagger over that 36.
I'm assuming that's your estimation of when you think you maybe would fill all of those. And you know, as a management company for shopping centers, I'm sure you have good ideas of how those things
we wanted to be
work.
conservative about that. I mean, we have no expectations that within the same month that Save-A-Lot opens, that the other anchor position would be open.
Well, it's been previously stated, one of my big concerns is the amount of loss, certainly to the school district. And, you know, there are a lot of other entities involved, our fire district, and, you know, a number of them are listed. In fact, I don't know, can anyone answer a question for me? It's listed as just replacement. What is that as far as breakdown of the taxes and where it goes? What?
There used to be a merchants and manufacturers tax about 20 years ago, probably 20 years ago now, and the voters of Missouri changed that, but they didn't want to take that tax away. So the replacement tax is a tax on commercial property only, and the revenue is collected at the county level and dispersed at varying percentages to other entities. So to the other entities. So a portion of that is shared by the city, but not all of it.
So
it's a pretty complicated tax, but it's
a portion of that might come back
to the city.
To the city.
A portion of it does go back to the city.
Okay, because that's the second largest one listed here. Okay, thank you.
I'll be brief.
You'll be brief, you promise?
Well, at least get my questions out there so that the answers.
Again, it's important that we get the message to these
I agree.
folks. What I'd like to not do is repeat what we've been talking about for the last 2 hours, though. So
very good.
New items, Pat?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very much so.
All right, thank you, sir.
With regards to the 16 employees, who monitors how many employees you have, and what happens if you go below the 15? How do we know?
Well, I mean that can be written into the contract.
I'm sorry.
I've always
what
seen
did you ask?
Performance standards as how do we maintain the performance standards required by the program? And I'm assuming that that's going to be in the redevelopment agreement that we'll have to sign with the city.
Which is what's been done with previous Chapter 353 tax abatements. For example, the GE Chapter 353 tax abatement has a level of employees that's required, and in their development agreement, they have to provide an annual report or some sort of reporting that shows that they've maintained that
We're
level.
talking 16 employees employed at this store, working at this store, not a baker somewhere else that since they're selling more bread now has a job. We're talking
Well, we're talking
store.
about the 353 tax abatement is for the entire center. So it's center.
16 new at a minimum.
At a minimum.
15, actually, for your
15
program.
For the program within the center.
And it's monitored yearly. And should you go below that, the tax abatement goes away?
Look, I got to tell you, that's not the biggest. With all due respect, I mean,
Well, I want to go one step further. Is you said you're going to do $4.26 million at about a 20% gross is $800,000, and 16 employees at $50,000 apiece is $800,000. It doesn't sound viable that you're going to have 16 employees in that store with the numbers, with your sales projections and that you stated to us. So I have a concern over the amount of employees you have.
Right.
Also, I've heard that some of your stores do not have 16 employees in them. So that's why it's also a concern.
I think overall what I think we're hearing from you, if I can summarize.
thank you.
Is that I think it'll be important for us to come back and maybe spend a little bit more time on blight. We didn't spend time on blight because it's already been blighted. And your program says if you go into this blighted area and you meet this criteria, you're eligible for this. So we'll add that to our presentation because we didn't spend a lot of time on that because that's how we understood the program worked. So blight is an issue. We'll bring the definition in. Blight is not only, as you may know, it's economic underutilization just as much as it is a deterioration of improvement. So we will bring that information to you. I'm also hearing that you have some specific questions about savalot operations, and you want to know savalot operation information. So we can bring that information back. I think those are the two big categories of concern. I have a few, we'll have some other comments about the school district's perspective, but we'll save that for the second public hearing if you want, unless you want to hear it now.
I think summarization is what we're after at this point.
Okay.
I appreciate you doing it.
Okay.
What I also heard, though, and I'm wondering if there's not some way, and I've seen this done before, is there not some way to compensate the respective districts for the money they may lose? Is there not some other way that maybe they could?
Well, 353 programs, the 353 programs do have, you mean like pilots?
Yeah, something that would help compensate them for the loss, the fire district, the school district, all the other taxing agencies. Is there not perhaps a way that we could look at that would compensate them for their loss?
Well,
you don't have to answer it now,
okay.
But I'd like to learn more about that the next time, because there's a big gap there, and we're very much concerned. The schools are a very big part of this community, and we need to make sure that they're whole, and we want to keep them as a viable part of our selling of this community also. So just look at it, and hopefully you come up with something that'll help us with that. From the board's perspective, was there anything else that Christine needs to summarize here without long debate? But is there something that we got that we'll make sure she comes back with here?
Well,
Adrian?
As I remember it, you closed the hearing and they were no longer answering questions, and I've waited patiently to express some views and wanted to listen to what everybody else had to say to do that. I'm hoping I still have that opportunity.
If you want to,
because these aren't questions, I just want to express.
If you want to add items that you'd like for them to make sure they address
Yes.
for the next meeting, yes, this is.
I'd like
time.
the items I want the board to also think about between now and the next meeting that I think are important.
Go.
All right.
Please.
First of all, and I know that oftentimes that when we look at the other side of the coin, read the other words, sometimes we're considered the bad guy. But I heard some things tonight that are really, really wrong. And I'd like to just cover those. One was your comment about when an owner builds property, then he leaves it up to the tenant to keep that property exactly the way it was when it was built. Now, and we know that's not true, because in real life, at one time I taught economics, and back in the old days, economics went like this, that you took your property and you took your profits and you depreciated that property, and you put money aside to rebuild it. That goes all the way back to tax war in 1901 when New York had riots. That's no longer true because now we have tips and abatements and it's a whole new ball game because you have the perfect argument. And that argument is you're not losing money. The truth is, because of your philosophy that you stated, in real life that building is going to depreciate it and the owner takes no responsibility to keep it up. And in 20 years, when the taxes are now through, the abatements are through, the building's basically wasted. We tear it down and start over again. Or 30 years. You get a couple of years of taxes out of it. I think that's wrong. The second thing is that the more stores we build, the more money people are going to spend in Raytown. This is the fourth time that we're looking at giving tax assistance to a grocery store. If we just keep building more and more grocery stores, people are going to buy more and more groceries. We're going to make more and more money.
Just so that we're correct on that, that's not a correct statement.
No, I know it's not. That's what I'm saying. These things are very, very wrong.
What you just said is not correct, so if you'd continue.
Right,
please.
I did. And I think this board needs to take a serious look on how many tax assistance programs that we give for building grocery stores. Thirdly, fair policy. There are businessmen that do live back in the 20th century. They do put money aside. They don't come here and ask for tax abatements. For example, the store, a little store that's been in business for a long time, has asked us for nothing. Every time we build a new grocery store, we come and give them a tax abatement. We come one more step of driving the other man out of business.
Please don't say that again because that's not correct. That sends a wrong message to those listening.
Well, I don't think that, and when I look at Briarwood and the other places, I watch the potholes that the people that own that property don't keep it up, and then when it gets so far down the line that they need tax assistance.
Briarwood's not one of ours, so.
Well, no, but places like that let their property depreciate. And Center 63rd is a good example of that. And then lastly, the philosophy is, well, you're not really losing money. Because if you don't make money, then you're not losing money if we don't make it anyway. And the truth is this. These are normal taxes. They're put in place so that we can provide services and to build Raytown up the same way that the guy that owns Center 63 wants to build it back up. But we can't get ahead because we're on a fixed income. And every time we give away more tax dollars, and they are, the same way the school district says, hey, if you cut our possible revenue, because we are planning to keep our buildings up, we are planning on the future. And so when you take our future away from us, we can't keep up with the future. We don't have their policy. That's why we can't afford new street lights. We've argued about that. Well, we can put one here and one there, but not everywhere. And we don't have enough sidewalks. And our city administrator will tell you, there's no way we can possibly address all of our stormwater problems. And we never will be. So we're never going to get ahead. We're just going to have a lot of new business with shiny fixtures. I think that what we need to do is that we need to focus on the things that help that business make it a better business. We need to put new sidewalks in. We need to maybe help them with their pavement, with the aesthetics part of it, but nothing as far as the actual building is. When they buy that building and what they put in that building to make a profit off of it, they need to be responsible for all that money. And that's my stance.
Very good. Thank you, Joe. Okay. Applicants clear on the issues that we're looking to come back with? I thank you for your patience. If the board would like to go ahead and dispense with discussion, I would certainly entertain a motion to take this to a date certain of January 4th.
Second.
Motion's been made by the left side. We're going to give it to Mr. Lightfoot, and the second was made by the right side. We're going to give that to Mr. Kramer to continue this to a date certain of January 4th. I appreciate everybody's patience. It's been a long night. We've had a lot of good discussion. Any discussion before we vote on the motion to continue this? Call the vote, please.
Alderman Lightfoot,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Alderman Pardue,
Yes.
Alderman Mock,
Yes.
Alderman Hamilton,
Yes.
Alderman Melson, Alderman Azier,
Yes.
Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
Alderman White,
Yes.
Are we down to?
Wow, the only thing left on our agenda is adjournment.
Second.
Moved and seconded, motion made by Mr. Kramer, second made by Mr. Lightfoot.
Aye.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.